To be honest with you, it's really simple to implement internalization for Next.js using this Next internalization package. And in this video, we're not going to implement the local-based routing because some people just don't like it. Basically, we'll add unique path names for every language that your app supports, like /en or /de or /id, whatever it is. And the value is basically stored on the cookies. As you can see in here, the value is en by default. If I change that, the value is also changed, right? Yeah, that's what we're gonna learn in this video. So let's get started. All right, so let's click this get started, and then I'm gonna select this app router setup. And here, as you can see, first we have to generate the Next.js application, of course. So I'm gonna just copy this command in here. I'm gonna use npm anyway. For the application name, I'm gonna say my next internalization. I'm gonna say enter. All right, this is the brand new Next.js application. So now let's go back. We need to install this package in here. I'm gonna copy and paste that to the terminal. So this is the important part. You have to follow this file structure. You have to have messages folder. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to create on the root messages /en.json file. Okay, just follow this file structure. And we have to have this next-config.ts file. We already have that. I believe this one right here. And also we have to have this folder, right? i18n folder. So I'm going to create that. Here we go. And also we have to have this request.ts inside it. Let's create a file. For now, empty is fine. And as you can see, we have this app layout and page. It is already have by default, I believe. Yep, cool. So now we need to create the JSON file. As you can see in here, the messages is basically represent the translation that are available per language and can be provided either locally or you can just grab that from the remote data source. So this is the example. So maybe I just want to copy that and go to en.json file and paste that, right? That's for the en. And of course, if you have a multiple language, you have to create like another language in here, like a de, for example, .json, right? This is basically a German language. So we can just copy that and paste that in here and we can change the value. Here we go. Now we need to update the request.ts file on the i18n folder. So I just want to copy everything in here and then paste that to the request.ts file. And here we go. And as you can see, this basically will export the get request config and it's basically async await function. And as you can see, it just return the local and the message, right? The message should be import the messages folder that we created in here. But as you can see, it's double // you have to remove that. It should be on the same position right here, right? // messages and whatever the local it is, .json. Great. By default is en. For now, we can do that static for now. We are going to change this later. So what we have to do next is on the next.config.ts, we have to change that. It's basically we'll wrapping the next config with something called with next-intl. As you can see in here, by default, it just export the next config, but we have to wrapping that with a next-intl right here, right? This is the next config. So I'm gonna copy just everything and paste that. Here we go. And the next thing is on the layout.ts, basically we need to wrapping the children with next client provider. So I'm gonna copy this one and go back to the layout and then just wrapping the children with this provider. And next thing is on the page.tsx, we can just render the use translation and grab the value. So I just want to copy this one, go to page and paste it. Here we go. So now what we have to do is just running npm run dev. Now as you can see, we have this hello world that render. By default, this is en, right? Because we're setting that to en by default on the I believe on the request.ts. As you can see in here, we can change that to de, for example. And now as you can see, it's changed, right? And also by default, it should be stored on the cookies, I believe, as you can see in here, right? De by default. If I change that to en and refresh it, it's not changed basically because now it's not getting the value from the cookies. So let's fix that. So first I'm going to create variable called store. So I'm gonna paste that in here. Const store set equals to wait for the cookies, right? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the value. So here, as you can see, I create the local variable and then grab the params.local. So the param is basically the parameters that we can grab from here, right? So I'm gonna paste that. Here we go. So we can grab that from the params, the local value, or we can grab that from the store.get.local.value. So this is basically the way we get the value from the cookies in here, right? And this basically will store on the local variable. If there's no value in here, by default is en, as you can see. And I think we're done. I like to just put the messages on another variable on the top in here. So I'm gonna copy this and create another variable called messages. So equals to this value, and I like to just using these messages on the bottom right here. So the return, it should be a little bit clean for me. So now as you can see, if I change the value like DE, hit enter. If I refresh the browser, it should be German language. If I change the value from the cookies to EN, hit enter and refresh the browser, it should be English, right? Because the value is get from the cookies right now. Of course, we can always add another value in here, like a description if you want to do that. And of course, if you have another page, you can add that in here as well, like a about page, for example. And you can put an object, and you can put like a title and description as well in here. So for the format, you can just copy this, right? And go back to the German here. You can just paste that like this. And now we have to change the value of the description and the about page as well in here. Great. So now we can just close that, and we can just go back to the page in here, and we can just render the description. Anyway, I just want to copy and paste my return value in here. As you can see, we have this heading 1 with the title and p tag with the description and the link in here as well. So now let's take a look. Our home, it should be look like this. Nice. But we don't have any button to switch between the language. So let's just create the button. So what I'm going to return in this local switcher component is basically I'm going to render this array with string value en and de. And then I'm going to map through this array, and then I'm going to grab the individual value. I'm going to say cur for current, and then in here I'm going to render a button just like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just render the value and then to uppercase to make sure the value should be on uppercase. Great. So let's take a look at the value. We have en and d, right? In d. Great. So here I'm going to add like space, class name, display flags, gap 2, and then the text should be like a small save, and we should have this space, right? So anyway, this component, it should be client component because we are going to add the on-click event on the button. So I'm going to change that component to the client. Let's adding the on-click event in here, and when I click that, it should be basically running this change local action. So what is the change local action? So first I'm going to import the local type from the next internalisation, but what is change local action? So this is basically a function from the props. So we can just grab that in here. So I'm going to grab it like this. As you can see, we have this error because this local switcher doesn't have any type. I'm going to create this type in here, props equals to this change local action function that have this parameter local, and then it should be return promise, right? So I'm going to put the type in here. So let's do props like this. Nice. So now as you can see, when I click the button, it's basically will running the change local action function from the props. But the question now is where this change local action function. So as you can see on the layout, we have this error because we not send that props function. So as you can see, I'm going to send that change local action set equals to change local action. So now we have to create that function. I'm going to create that in here. So I'm going to say async and then function, and then the name is change local action. And for now, it's just an empty. And now as you can see, the error should be gone. Okay, great. So what we have to do inside this function. So first, I'm going to make sure this function is take up a parameter called local. And the local is basically type from the next internalisation. And also, I'm going to make sure that this function should be running on the server side. First, what I have to do is I'm going to access the cookie, right? Store set equals to await for the cookies. And as you can see, we have this error because we don't not yet import that from the next/headers. That's how we grab the cookies value. And then in here, what we have to do is just really simple. We can say store.set And basically we have to change the local value from the cookies to new value. And the new value, it should become from the parameters of the function, all right, that we're running on the local switcher. As you can see, when I click the button, it should basically send this current value. It's either en or de, right? So we just putting that on the store.set local and put the value in here. So if you're not sure what the local is, you can just console log and just say local. Now every time you click the button, it should be basically show the value. As you can see, en, we not see that because it's running on the server. As you can see, we have en in here. I hope you can see that, right? En, and if I click, for example, de, click that, and now as you can see, it's de right here. And now every time I change that, as you can see, it's also changed the value on the browser, right? The text on the browser, it should be changed as well. Normally you have to add styling on the button when the button is active, right? So here I'm going to add class name, right? So class name set equals to this one right here. And if the local is equals to the current active, it should be change the background to black. So how we get the local current value? It's pretty simple. We can use hooks called use local. So this is the way we get the local value from the next internalization as well. So here, if I refresh, as you can see, we still had this error because, oh yeah, we have to put a key basically. So I'm gonna put a key on the button. So the key should be cur, like this, and now the error should be gone. As you can see, now the en is active. If I go to de, and now the de is active. So if you're working with multi-language, just make sure your HTML in here that have this length should be have a dynamic value as well on these value length in here. The way we're getting that is, yeah, pretty simple. We can use get local as well in here. So I'm going to just create a variable called local. Here we go. And await for this get local, import that. And as you can see, because we're using await, of course, this component should be async. And then we can just put the local to this language in here, just putting that like this. And now you can just see that on the element, I believe, HTML here, the language is de, right? If I change that, the language is en, right? The language is basically always changed if I change also the language. So now, of course, you can create another page because you have the value in here, like a about page, title, and description. You can create like a about, for example, /page.tsx. And here you can just paste this component, really simple. As you can see, we have this use translation, the way you get the value from the about page, right? And we access the title and description, and that's it. So now let's take a look on the about. We have this about with this description as well. If I change that to German language, it's changed basically. If I go back to the home, it's still using the German language. So that's how we implement the internalization in Next.js using the next internalization. It's pretty simple, right? Hopefully this video helpful, and see you on the next one.